The Raptors just secured their future with these two moves and a couple decisions made by Bobby Webster that frankly would have been fireable if he didn't actually go through with. So it's a good thing he made these pretty routine decisions. So we'll discuss that, including a couple important injury updates for this Toronto Raptors team entering game one of this year's NBA season and what a timeline could look like for Collin Murray-Boyles that has some Raptors fans worried. So we're going to dive into all of this and more out here in this video because there's lots of stuff rolling in Toronto sports right now and it's affecting this Toronto Raptors team. But of course, game one is happening tonight. We are going to be live for it out here on the channel, so make sure to tune in for the entire watch zone we have here on Raptors Digest. Just make sure to turn on that bell notification so you know when we go live. But we got lots of stuff to dive into, including the schedule for this Toronto Raptors game, because right now the Blue Jays World Series, they play Friday night and Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, so the Raptors have adjusted their schedule accordingly. So the tip-off against the Milwaukee Bucks will now be earlier, this Friday night at 6:30 Eastern, and then next Wednesday, which will also be a World Series game, that has been moved up earlier against the Houston Rockets. So basically, the World Series, of course, is going to be on a lot of people's minds, and we'll might be taking a look at it here on the channel as well. There's a demand for it, but the Raptors will be playing earlier this week. So that's one thing to take note, one thing to take a look at. So some scheduling updates. But what are the moves? What are the transactions? What's happening with this team? Well, the Raptors made a couple of routine decisions which secured their future. As news came out that the Raptors have picked up Gradey Dick's fourth-year option as well as Jacoby Walter's third-year option for the 2026-2027 season. No extension yesterday for Ochai Agbaji. He'll hit restricted free agency this summer, or RJ Barrett, who's eligible again in the offseason. Now, we discussed the Ochai Agbaji and RJ Barrett decisions out there in a previous video, but the Raptors have officially picked up Gradey Dick and Jacoby Walter's third and fourth years option. So congrats to both those guys. They deserve it. They deserve their contracts picked up. As we take a look at their stats, of course, Gradey Dick and has proven a lot over the course of his first two seasons and is looking to take a major step forward this year. Statistically has been awesome for this team. 14.4 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, 1.8 assists. Knocking down 35% of his three-point shots. We know Gradey Dick. He's 21 years old and is coming into his own for this upcoming season. So Jacoby Walter as well, a guy, the stats in his rookie year don't seem like on the totality of the year as amazing, but still a guy needs his option. Picked up 9 points per game, 3.1 rebounds. We saw at the back half of last year that he really put in work as a scorer, as a three-point shooter, was knocking down his shots. And this season is coming in with 20 extra pounds of muscle, which we covered on the most recent video. So, Gradey Dick, Jacoby Walter, routine decisions there for Bobby Webster, needed to be done, needed to bring both of those guys back. So nothing too crazy, nothing too novel there. We take a look at the lineups. Both those guys are going to be expected to play a part on this team, especially if injuries are happening, which we're going to get into in this video. Gradey Dick is going to be a rotation guy regardless, night in, night out. They're battling for minutes, but certain games you might see, some of them get lower run, but Jacoby Walter, Gradey Dick, Ochai Agbaji, Jamison Battle should all be mainstays out there on that rotation of wings the Raptors have in this group. And again, if even some of the bigs go out, Scottie Barnes moves up a spot, Collin Murray-Boyles is out, you're going to see more Scottie at the 4. You get more of these kind of wing players out there into the rotation. So, going to be rotation pieces, have extremely high upside. Good stuff there for the Toronto Raptors. But what's going on with all of these injury updates? What's the news out here in this situation? Well, news has come out that basically the Raptors rookie Collin Murray-Boyles will miss the season opener against Atlanta with a right forearm strain, and Jacoby Walter with an illness has also been ruled out. So again, illness, hoping that's all good for Jacoby Walter. They never really directly say anything about illnesses, but usually that's pretty well sorted in a couple days. So, good news that, not good news that he's out, but nothing too crazy dramatic there for Jacoby Walter. But Collin Murray-Boyles has been dealing with an injury over the course of preseason. And if you're not familiar, he's the Raptors rookie, drafted 9th overall, defensive menace out there on this group. And especially where Oler Shamshay ended up dealing with, an injury that frankly let him get cut by the Toronto Raptors. He's question marks about whether or not he'll play in the NBA again. That's all stuff that's going on, but Collin Murray-Boyles, CMB, is expected to be even more important in the rotation now this year. We don't have a lot of big men out there in the front line. Jonathan Mobo's height was listed as 6'7" out there this year instead of 6'9". That's been adjusted going to this year. And Mamoukelashvili, of course, has looked really, really good in preseason, is expected to be in the key piece of the rotation, but is a guy that feels a little bit not like a natural center. He's a floor spacer, he's mobile and all that. So CMB is actually pretty sturdy, is hefty out there for the 4 spot, can play some small ball 5 for this group. And even though, some might say he's one of the rawer players in the top 10, I expect him to be a key piece of the rotation if healthy for this year. And to see him go down with be out for game 1 of this actual NBA season is concerning to me. I was hoping it was just a excuse. It was just something to throw out there and be like, oh, he's not there for preseason, we're being precautious. But if he is missing actual NBA games, that is concerning. To make things more concerning, what a lot of people do, they go into Google and they search up what's going on. This is essentially what Google said in terms of the injury, that a basketball player's recovery time from a right forearm strain depends on the severity, ranging from a few weeks for a mild strain to several months for a severe one. Minor strains at grade 1 can heal in a few weeks, while moderate strains grade 2 may take several weeks to months, and severe strains at grade 3, especially those requiring surgery, can take 4 to 6 months. Now, I don't imagine it's a grade 2 or grade 3. I feel like they would have, especially if you need surgery, I feel like they would have got that done right away. But still, a few weeks for a rookie in the most important time of the year to, get acclimated to the Raptors system, missed a bunch of preseason stuff. We saw this happen with Jakob Poeltl last year, had, injuries to start off the year. It took him a while to get in the rhythm, dealt with a couple injuries, was in and out of the lineup, and it wasn't really to the back half of the season where we saw him come to his own. I'm just hoping for Collin Murray-Boyles' sake, for the Toronto Raptors' sake, that he is going to be healthy and, just one of those minor ones that take him out a few games rather than something that's going to keep him out for months on end. So we'll keep you updated on all of the updates there, on everything that's going on. But the Toronto Raptors tonight are playing off against the Atlanta Hawks. And, of course, without Jakob Poeltl, without Collin Murray-Boyles, you're looking at a lineup, of course, starters. We saw it through preseason: IQ, RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes, Brown and Jakob Poeltl, and then Shead, Gradey Dick, Ochai Agbaji, and then Mamu. And you're probably going to see a bit of Mobo out there in this game. Jamison Powell might slide up to the 4, but you're probably going to see some Mobo in actual NBA run against the Atlanta Hawks in tonight's game. And I'm interested to see, because the Atlanta Hawks are a very, very strong roster. Like, we take a look at this team in terms of what they actually have on their roster. Trae Young, of course, get buckets in a hurry, but they revamped this team. They brought in Kristaps Porzingis. They have Jalen Johnson. They have Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Those are some long dudes out there at those forward positions. Onyeka Okongwu can play that center spot, depending on who's starting him, KP, but that's a lot of defense there for this group. Of course, you have Reese Shea, the number 1 overall pick. Dyson Daniels, one of the more elite defenders in the entire NBA. And then on top of it, they added some shooting this year. Of course, we talked about Knob. Then you also have Luke Kennard that's able to knock down some shots. Their backup point guard is a little bit questionable in terms of who's can actually play that spot. But Jalen Johnson coming back is a huge piece. KP actually in the lineup is going to be cool. So I don't know. I think this Hawks team is going to be a very good test for the Toronto Raptors to start off this year. It's going to be interesting to see how we perform against this team. But Brandon Ingram wants all the smoke, and he's come out and said this, that says, when I'm right, there's no one in the league that can stop me. And going up against, the Nickeil Alexander-Walkers of the world, the back line of, Onyeka Okongwu and Jalen Johnson and KP, who can be a solid rim protector. Of course, Dyson Daniels, who's in the mix for a legitimate, DPOY anytime he's playing, consistent run out there. This is going to be a nice, fun test to see Brandon Ingram come out, send his message to the league, send his message to the NBA that he is back and he's ready to get buckets, and just watch this Toronto Raptors team finally cook and finally come into their own. So let me know what you guys think. Be tuned in for the live stream that's happening tonight. Appreciate every single one of you guys. The best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.